plate slipped from my trembling hands, shattering on the kitchen floor. For a moment, the sound echoed through the quiet house like thunder. I stood there, frozen, staring at the mess, my heart pounding harder than it should for a woman my age. From the living room, I could still hear my daughter's voice, low, sharp, and certain. "Mom just slows everything down, Daniel. It's time she moves into the care home. We can't keep doing this." My breath caught. I pressed my back against the counter, feeling the cold marble through my thin sweater. I wasn't supposed to hear that. I had come down to get a glass of water. Just a glass of water. But instead, I got a sentence that cracked something deep inside me. My daughter, the same little girl I used to rock to sleep through her nightmares, now saw me as a burden. I bent down slowly to pick up the pieces of the broken plate. My fingers shook. I could still hear her laughter from years ago, the way she'd run through this kitchen barefoot, with her hair wild and her cheeks red from playing in the snow. I used to think those moments would last forever. Now they lived only in memories and photographs. I tiptoed back toward my room. The old wooden floor creaked softly beneath me. In the reflection of the hallway mirror, I caught a glimpse of myself, wrinkled face, tired eyes, and a sadness that no makeup could hide. I whispered, half to myself and half to the empty hallway, "Have you ever felt unwanted in your own family? Tap that heart symbol so I know I'm not alone." I sat on the edge of my bed and listened to the silence that followed their conversation, a silence heavy enough to choke on. Outside, rain tapped gently against the window. I used to love that sound. It meant comfort, warmth, home. Tonight, it just sounded like goodbye. The next morning, my daughter, Lily, came into my room. "Mom," she began softly, avoiding my eyes, "Daniel and I were talking last night. We think it's best if you stay somewhere more comfortable. You'll have people your age, nurses, good food." Her voice faded as she noticed the look on my face. I smiled, that same polite, motherly smile I'd worn all my life. "I see," I said. "You think I need someone else to take care of me." "It's not like that," she insisted, but even she didn't believe it. "It's just things are getting busy. The kids, Daniel's work, the house." "Your house," I corrected softly. She blinked, confused. "What?" "It's your house now, isn't it?" I said, forcing my voice not to tremble. "You paid off the mortgage. You redecorated. You said it yourself last month. It finally feels like yours." Lily opened her mouth, but no words came. She looked down, fidgeting with her phone. I knew she didn't mean to hurt me.
But sometimes hurt doesn't come with cruelty. It comes with convenience. By afternoon, I packed a small suitcase. Just a few clothes, my medicine, and the framed photo of Lily when she was 5, missing a tooth, holding a crayon drawing that said, "Me and Mommy." I slipped it into my bag quietly, as if afraid someone might stop me from taking it. The taxi came at 4. The driver helped me carry my suitcase to the porch. I turned back one last time to look at the house, the white pot swing, the little flower bed I'd planted, the curtains I'd sewn myself. My whole life, stitched into every corner. Lily hugged me quickly, her arms stiff, her perfume too strong. "You'll be okay, Mom," she said. "They'll take good care of you there." "Of course," I whispered. "I took care of everyone else. It's only fair someone takes care of me now." For a second she looked guilty. Then she turned away to answer a call. I got into the taxi. As it pulled away, I looked back through the window. My daughter stood by the door, waving faintly. Behind her, Daniel came out, put his arm around her shoulders, and said something that made her smile. The kind of smile she used to give me once. The kind of smile that now belonged to someone else. The care home was clean and quiet. Too quiet. The nurse showed me to my room, small but neat. A single bed, a wooden chair, and a window facing a garden. "You'll like it here," she said kindly. "It's peaceful." Peaceful. That word again. Peaceful like a graveyard. I nodded politely. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept staring at the ceiling, hearing echoes of laughter that weren't there anymore. I thought of the plate shattering, of my daughter's words, of how life can turn you from the heart of a home into an extra piece of furniture no one needs anymore. If this moment breaks your heart too, just hit like so she knows she's not forgotten. I murmured to the darkness. Days passed.
Lily visited once a week. She brought flowers, smiled for a few minutes, checked her phone often, and left. I didn't blame her. The young always move fast. The old just try to keep up. But one evening, something changed. I had gone outside to sit on the garden bench. The wind carried the smell of autumn, crisp leaves, damp earth, and something bittersweet. A volunteer was closing the main gate when she turned to me. "Mrs. Green," she said softly, "you had a visitor earlier today." "A visitor?" I asked, surprised. "But my daughter was just here yesterday." She nodded. "Yes, but this was someone else. A man. He didn't leave his name. He just asked if you were staying here. When I told him yes, he smiled, sort of sadly, and said he'd be back soon." My heart fluttered. "Did he say who he was?" "No," she said, "but he stood by the fence for a long time, just looking at the building, like he knew it." That night, I couldn't sleep again. I kept replaying her words. A man. Someone who knew me? Someone watching? I got up, walked to the window, and looked out. The garden was dark, except for one flickering lamp near the gate. For a second, I thought I saw a shadow there, tall, still, watching. My breath caught. Then it was gone. Maybe it was just my imagination. Or maybe not. Because the next morning, when Lily came to visit, her face was pale. "Mom," she whispered, closing the door behind her, "did you talk to anyone yesterday?" "No," I said. "Why?" She hesitated, then held out her phone. On the screen was a picture, blurry, taken from their home security camera. A man, standing by the fence of her house, staring at the window. He was there last night, watching the house. I looked at the photo. My hands trembled slightly, but not from fear. There was something familiar in that silhouette, something my heart recognized even if my eyes couldn't. Sometimes silence hurts more than words. Comment true if you've ever felt that pain. Lily's eyes searched mine. "Mom, do you know him?" she asked. I looked away, toward the small photo on the table, the one of Lily as a child smiling beside her father. "No," I said quietly, but deep inside, my heart knew exactly who that man was. And she didn't know. He wasn't watching her. He was watching me. When Lily left that morning, the air in my small room felt heavier than usual. The photo of the man on her phone still lingered in my mind. The silhouette, the stillness, the way he seemed to wait. For what? Or for whom? I sat by the window, the pale winter light spilling across my lap. Outside, the garden looked calm, but my heart wasn't. It beat with the rhythm of old memories, ones I had tried to bury but never could. I closed my eyes, and suddenly I was back, 25 years ago. The house was alive then, the same house Lily now called hers. The kitchen smelled of cinnamon rolls and fresh coffee. My husband, Richard, would sit by the table, reading the paper, his glasses slipping down his nose. "You'll spoil them," he used to say when I made extra pancakes for Lily. I'd laugh, kiss the top of his head, and tell him that love was meant to be spoiled. Back then, Lily was my whole world. After Richard died in that car accident, she was the reason I got up every morning. I worked 2 shifts at the diner, sometimes 3, just to keep her in college.
I remember sitting in that little kitchen, my hands cracked from washing dishes, staring at her acceptance letter from medical school. She was crying with joy. I was crying too. Not from joy, but from relief. I had done it. I had given her wings. But somewhere along the way, I forgot that wings can also fly away. At first, everything seemed perfect. She married Daniel, polite, successful, always smiling in front of me. But there was something in his eyes, a calculation. He would hold Lily's hand at dinners, call me mom, bring me flowers on holidays, but I could feel it, that distance, the kind that hides behind courtesy, the kind that only grows. After they had children, visits became shorter, calls became fewer. "Mom, I'll come next week," she'd say, her voice sweet but distracted. And I would wait, sometimes in my favorite chair by the window, sometimes by the phone. The waiting turned into a ritual, like prayer. Then came the day she asked me to move in. I thought it was love. I thought she wanted me closer. But later I realized she needed my savings. I had sold the old house after Richard died. The insurance money, the savings, the pension, everything I had went into that new home, into her home. "We'll all live together," she had said, holding my hand. "You'll have your own room, Mom. You deserve peace." And I believed her, because that's what mothers do. We believe our children, even when it hurts.
I paid for the down payment, helped with furniture. I even signed a few documents Daniel asked me to. Just bank stuff, he said. I didn't read them. I trusted him. I trusted them both. But last year, when I fell and broke my hip, everything changed. Suddenly, I was too much work. The sighs got louder, the smiles shorter, the patience thinner. I began to feel like a guest in my own home. One evening, I overheard Daniel whisper to her, "Your mom's name is still on the deed. We should get that sorted before anything happens." I never said a word. But that night, I sat in the dark and cried for the first time in years. Not because I was scared of losing the house, but because I realized I had already lost my daughter. "If you've ever given everything to your family and still felt invisible," I whispered, looking at my reflection in the dark window, "tap heart symbol so I know you exist." Days in the care home passed slowly. I grew used to the routine. The morning tea, the soft footsteps in the hall, the smell of disinfectant and old books. Sometimes the nurse, Clara, would sit beside me. She was young, maybe Lily's age, with a smile that reminded me of who Lily used to be. "Mrs. Green," she said one evening, "you must miss home." I smiled faintly. Home isn't always a place, dear. Sometimes it's a time. And sometimes it's gone. But that peace didn't last. One evening, as the sun dipped low, I saw the same shadow again, by the gate. The man, the one who had been watching. He didn't move, didn't call out, just stood there, like a memory waiting to be remembered. My heart pounded. I went to tell Clara, but by the time she came out, he was gone. That night, I couldn't shake the feeling. Who was he? Why now? Then something strange happened. The next morning, a letter arrived. No return address, just my name, written in a handwriting I hadn't seen in decades. I opened it carefully. Inside was a short note. "You shouldn't have signed those papers, Evelyn. He lied to you. Check the drawer." The drawer? I went to my bedside table and opened the small drawer where I kept my rosary and old photographs. There, tucked under the picture of me and Richard, was a folded document. My hand shook as I opened it. It was one of the papers I had signed years ago, the one Daniel gave me. But at the bottom, something was different.
My signature was there, but beside it, another, forged, his. And the title read, Property Transfer Agreement. They had transferred the house completely, without me knowing. I sat down, my chest tight. The betrayal felt deeper than any wound. They hadn't just locked me out of the house, they had erased me from it.
No mother deserves to be forgotten, I whispered, my voice trembling. Share this if you still believe love is stronger than greed. That evening, I couldn't sit still. I went to the window again. The garden was dim, the wind cold. And then I saw him, the man, closer this time. His face hidden beneath a cap, but something about the way he stood, the way his hand trembled slightly. It was familiar. I opened the window a crack. "Who are you?" I whispered into the dark. No answer, but he lifted his head slightly, and for a split second, the light from the lamp caught his face. My heart stopped. Richard! It couldn't be. He'd been gone for 25 years. I saw the car. I saw the funeral. But that face, older, thinner, but unmistakable. It was him. I stumbled back, clutching the edge of the table. My breath came in short, sharp gasps. I blinked, and when I looked again, he was gone. The next morning, I asked Clara if anyone had come to visit. She shook her head. "No one but your daughter yesterday, Mrs. Green." I didn't know what to think anymore. Was I losing my mind? Or was there something I was never told? That night, I pulled out the document again and stared at it under the lamp. Then, I noticed something I hadn't before. Faintly stamped on the back, almost invisible, were initials R.G. Richard Green, the man watching from the window, the man I thought I buried. Sometimes the ones we love most are the ones who break us. Comment, true, if you understand that pain. I closed my eyes, and 1,000 memories flooded back. The nights he'd worked late, the phone calls that stopped making sense, the letter he sent a week before the accident, the one I never opened because I was too angry at him then.
The air in the lawyer's office was heavy, thick with silence that pressed against the walls. The ticking clock was the only sound, marking each second before everything changed. Daniel sat across the polished mahogany table, confident, tapping his pen impatiently. Emily sat beside him, avoiding my eyes. I could see the tension in her jaw, the way her hands twisted the edge of her sleeve. The lawyer, Mr. Harris, adjusted his glasses and looked between us. "Mrs. Mason," he said gently, "you requested this meeting." I nodded slowly. "Yes, I think it's time the truth comes out." Daniel smirked. "Truth? Nora, please. You're upset because you don't understand business. Let's not waste everyone's time." I looked at him, steady and calm. "Daniel, I may be old, but I'm not blind. You sold Mason Industries without my consent." He leaned forward, his voice controlled but sharp. "Your consent wasn't needed. Emily and I were the rightful owners." I opened my handbag and placed a worn yellow folder on the table. His eyes flicked toward it, then quickly away. "What's that supposed to be?" "The papers your father-in-law signed," I said softly, "transferring 50% of the company ownership to me. Not Emily, not you, me." For a moment, no one moved. The lawyer cleared his throat, reaching for the folder. Daniel's face tightened, his confident smirk fading. "That's impossible," he muttered. "Those documents were hidden," I finished for him. "Yes, behind the portrait in John's office, exactly where he said they'd be." Emily's eyes widened. You You knew? I turned to her. I didn't, not until yesterday, but your father made sure the truth couldn't be erased even after he was gone. Daniel stood up suddenly. This is ridiculous! That paperwork means nothing. The sale's already done. Mr. Harris looked at him calmly. If Mrs. Mason's signature is missing, the sale is not legally binding. The words hit him like a thunderclap. His face went pale. You can't do this, he hissed. You'll ruin everything. I looked at him, my voice trembling but steady. You already did that when you betrayed the family that trusted you. Emily's eyes filled with tears. Daniel, is this true? Did you really? He cut her off. Don't you start. Everything I did was for us. Your mother was clinging to a dying business. I felt something inside me crack. A dying business? I whispered. That company fed hundreds of families. It built this home. It carried your wife's childhood dreams. You didn't see a dying business, Daniel. You saw easy money. For a moment, no one spoke. The silence was suffocating. Then, quietly, I reached into my bag again and pulled out the small recorder. Daniel froze. What's that? I pressed play. John's voice filled the room, warm, firm, unshakable. If anything ever happens to me, Nora is the rightful co-owner of Mason Industries. No sale, merger, or transfer shall be valid without her written approval. The words echoed through the room like a ghost returning for justice. Emily gasped, covering her mouth. Mr. Harris leaned forward, eyes wide. Daniel took a step back. Where did you get that? He whispered. It doesn't matter where, I said. What matters is that your lies end here. He sank into his chair, his hands shaking. You planned this, he muttered. You wanted to humiliate me. No, I said softly. You did that to yourself. I just pressed play. Emily started crying quietly. Mom, I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know what he was doing. I looked at her, my daughter, my only child, and saw the guilt eating at her. You didn't want to know, I said gently. You believed him because it was easier than believing your mother might still have a voice. Her tears fell harder. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry he was doing that. Daniel slammed his hand on the table. Enough! You're all turning against me because of some old recording? You think this changes anything? The deal's already done. Mr. Harris looked at him firmly. Actually, it changes everything. Without Mrs. Mason's consent, the buyer will have to revoke or renegotiate the sale. You may face charges if fraud is proven. Daniel's voice broke. You can't do this to me. I met his eyes, calm, steady, unwavering. I didn't do anything to you, Daniel. You did it to yourself. He stared at me for a long moment, then grabbed his jacket and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the picture frames rattled. The silence that followed was deafening. Emily sat there, crying softly. I reached across the table and took her hand. Sometimes all you have left is your dignity, I said quietly. Share this if you'd still choose respect over riches. Mr. Harris cleared his throat gently. Mrs. Mason, I'll make sure these documents are filed immediately. You'll retain full authority to reclaim what's yours. Thank you, I said, my voice breaking slightly.
Lily's eyes widened. That's... she started. Yes, I said. The key to my house. The one you said was yours. Daniel sighed and rubbed his temples. This is ridiculous. You're confused, Evelyn. You've been through a lot. Don't, I said firmly. Don't call me confused. Not after what you did. He looked up sharply. What are you accusing me of? I slid the paper toward him. The forged deed. You had me sign this, remember? You said it was a banking form, but it wasn't. It was the deed to this house. You made me sign away everything I had left. Lily's face went white. Daniel, is that true? He hesitated just long enough for her to know. I did what was best for us, for our family. She wouldn't need it anyway. Our family, I interrupted softly. And what am I, Daniel? A burden? An inconvenience? Something to remove quietly like old wallpaper? Lily's voice trembled. Daniel, tell me it's not true. He said nothing, only looked at the floor. Tears filled her eyes. How could you? She's my mother. Your mother, who gave you everything she had? The roof over your head, the life you live, the education you treasure? And this is how you repay it? I turned toward Lily. When you asked me to move in, I thought it was love. But it wasn't, was it? It was convenience. You needed what I had, not who I was. Mom, no, she said, crying now. That's not true. Daniel said it was easier that way. Easier for him, not for you. I looked down at my trembling hands. Have you ever spoken the truth and still been blamed? Tap heart symbol if that pain feels familiar. Lily covered her face, sobbing quietly. Daniel stood up suddenly. This is going nowhere, he snapped. You don't have proof. That document could have come from anyone. But before I could speak, there was a sound from the hallway. A knock at the door. 3 slow knocks. Everyone froze. Daniel frowned. Who is that? Someone, I said softly, who knows the truth. He went to open the door. A man stepped in, older, thinner, his face half hidden beneath the brim of his cap. For a second, the room seemed to stop breathing. Lily gasped. Dad? Richard's voice was quiet, low, like a ghost remembering how to speak. Hello, Lily. Daniel stumbled back. This is impossible! You're dead, Richard finished, his gaze fixed on him.
That's what you made everyone believe. He looked at me. I'm sorry, Evelyn. I never wanted it this way. I stared at him, tears welling. You let me mourn you for 25 years. I had to, he said, voice breaking. I uncovered something before the accident, something about Daniel. He was laundering money through my firm. I confronted him. The next night, my car went off the bridge, but I got out before it sank. Lily staggered back, holding the edge of the table. You knew? She whispered to Daniel. You knew my father was alive? He said nothing. Sweat gathered on his forehead. Richard stepped closer. He knew. He kept it quiet. He threatened me, said if I ever came back, he'd ruin you both. So I disappeared. Until now. He turned to me. When I saw what he did to you, how he took everything from you, I couldn't stay hidden anymore. Lily shook her head. No, Daniel, please, tell me it's not true. Daniel's voice cracked. I did it for us, for you, for the kids. He was going to expose everything. I had no choice. I said quietly, you always had a choice. You just chose greed. I stood slowly, my knees weak, but my voice steady. You took my home, my peace, my daughter's trust, but you can't take my dignity. Sometimes all you have left is your dignity, I whispered, tears glistening. Share this if you'd still choose respect over riches. Lily looked between us, torn apart. Mom, Dad, what do we do now? Richard sighed. There's one more thing. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small envelope, yellowed with age. He placed it on the table. This was my original will. I left everything, to you, Evelyn. The house, the accounts, the land. Not Lily, not Daniel. You. My breath caught. Why would you? He smiled sadly. Because I knew you'd always take care of her. I just didn't know she'd forget who taught her love. Lily fell to her knees, crying, Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't know.
He said it was all for the best. I reached out, touching her shoulder gently. I know, my love. You trusted the wrong person, just like I once did. For a moment, no one spoke. Only the storm outside filled the silence. Then Richard looked at Daniel. It's over. I've already spoken to my lawyer. The truth is coming out. Daniel's face drained of color. You can't prove anything. Richard handed him a USB drive. This says otherwise. Recordings, bank statements, everything.
I looked at the bailiff and gave a small nod. He turned on the speaker system, and John's recorded voice filled the room. Strong, warm, full of life. If anything happens to me, Nora must approve all sales or changes to Mason Industries. She knows its soul better than anyone. A ripple moved through the courtroom. Gasps, murmurs, silence. Daniel's face went pale. Emily covered her mouth, tears falling freely. Daniel's lawyer stood. Your Honor, we request time to... The judge cut him off. Request denied. The evidence is overwhelming. The original ownership documents, the recorded statement, and multiple witnesses confirm Mrs. Mason's authority. Daniel's composure shattered. You think this makes her a hero? He shouted, voice breaking. She's just a bitter old woman clinging to the past. I didn't respond. I just looked at him, calm and steady. And you, I said softly, are a man who threw away his future for a few zeros on a check. The room went silent again. Even the judge's gavel hung in midair. Emily stood up, trembling. Daniel, how could you do this? After everything my parents gave us. He turned to her, desperate. I did it for us, for our future. Our future, she cried. You sold my father's dream and destroyed my mother's trust. What future is left? He reached out for her, but she stepped back. Don't, she said, voice trembling. You've done enough. The judge finally spoke, voice heavy with finality. The court finds Daniel Collins guilty of fraud, breach of trust, and illegal sale of corporate assets. The ownership of Mason Industries is hereby restored to Mrs. Nora Mason. There was a soft gasp across the room, then silence. Daniel sank into his chair, defeated. I didn't look at him again. Some victories feel too heavy to carry. After the session ended, people began whispering. How could he do that to his own mother-in-law? Someone said. Some people only realize too late what real wealth is, another murmured. I kept my eyes on the floor as I walked out. Justice had been served, but peace still felt far away. Outside the courthouse, reporters surrounded me. Mrs. Mason, how does it feel to win? One asked. I paused, then said quietly, winning doesn't always feel like victory. Sometimes it just feels like the truth finally stopped hiding.
The courtroom was silent. Only the faint hum of the ceiling fan filled the air. The old woman, Sushma, sat with trembling hands clutching her worn-out shawl. Across the room, her daughter Neha avoided her gaze, her lawyer whispering something hurriedly in her ear. The judge's voice broke the silence, deep and calm. Mrs. Sushma Sharma, you may begin. Every eye turned toward her. For a moment she didn't speak. Her breath was uneven, her eyes glassy with unspoken years of pain. Then, softly, she began. I built that house brick by brick. I didn't just spend money on it, I spent my life on it. Every corner has a memory. My husband's laughter, my daughter's first steps, the nights I stayed awake sewing clothes to pay for her school. Her voice wavered, but she didn't stop. And one day, she locked me out. As if I were a stranger? Gasps echoed through the courtroom. Neha's face turned pale. Her lawyer tried to interrupt, but the judge raised a hand. Let her speak. Sushma reached into her old bag and pulled out a folded document, edges frayed, yellow with age. This, she said, is the original ownership paper, signed by my husband and me. It was never transferred. Neha's lawyer jumped up. Objection! Those documents are outdated. But Sushma's lawyer calmly placed another paper on the table. This, he said, is a recording of a conversation between Neha and a real estate agent planning to sell the property without her mother's consent. The courtroom murmured in shock. The judge pressed play. Neha's voice filled the room, sharp and cold. Just sell it fast. She's too old to fight. The sound of those words broke Sushma's heart all over again. Tears streamed silently down her face. Neha's husband, seated behind her, covered his face in shame. A neighbor, Mrs. D'Souza, whispered to another, "After everything that woman did for her?" Sushma didn't look at her daughter. Her voice was almost a whisper. "Do you remember, Neha? When your father passed away, I sold my jewelry for your college. I didn't keep a single gold bangle. I thought my daughter is my wealth." Neha's eyes filled with tears, guilt battling pride. "I didn't mean for it to go this far, Ma," she muttered, but her voice was trembling. I wanted a better life." "A better life," she said softly. "And what did you buy it with? Your mother's loneliness?" The judge's gavel hit the desk. "Order in the court." The truth had already spoken louder than any argument. Neha's lawyer had no words. The judge turned toward her. "Do you deny this recording?" Neha shook her head slowly, eyes fixed on the floor. "No." The judge nodded solemnly. "Then the case is clear. The property belongs to Mrs. Sushma Sharma. All attempts of unauthorized transfer are void." Silence again, but this time it wasn't peace. It was the silence after a storm, heavy and filled with shame. Neha's husband tried to speak. "We can fix this, Ma, please." But Sushma just looked at him with weary eyes. "Fix?" she whispered. "Some cracks don't close even if you fill them." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. People looked at Neha, some with pity, others with disgust. One woman muttered, "How could she do that to her own mother?" Another whispered, "Some people only realize too late what real wealth is." Sushma stood slowly. Her legs trembled, but her spine was straight. She turned toward the judge. "Thank you, Your Honor. I don't want revenge. I only wanted the truth to breathe." She turned to Neha. "You locked me out, beta, but today truth opened the door." Neha burst into tears, falling to her knees. "Ma, please forgive me. I didn't know what I was doing." Sushma's eyes softened, but she didn't move closer. "Forgiveness isn't mine to give today. You'll have to live with what you did." Her lawyer placed a gentle hand on her shoulder as the crowd whispered in awe. For years, people had watched Neha's family from afar, believing they were happy. Today, masks fell. Truth stood alone, quiet but shining. Outside the courtroom, reporters whispered, cameras flashed, but Sushma ignored them. She stepped into the sunlight, her shawl fluttering in the wind. She felt lighter, but not happy. Truth had set her free, but it had also left scars that time couldn't erase. She looked back once, Neha standing at the door, eyes red, clutching the same keys she once used to lock her mother out. For a second, their eyes met. No words passed between them, only pain and regret hung in the air. Sushma's lawyer asked softly, "Madam, would you like to claim full possession today?" She smiled faintly. "Possession? I already have what I needed, the truth." He nodded respectfully. As she walked away, people in the corridor moved aside silently. Some bowed their heads, some watched in admiration. Her story had spread already, a story of betrayal, truth, and dignity. Outside, rain began to fall lightly. Sushma paused under the grey sky, letting a few drops touch her wrinkled hands. She closed her eyes, remembering the warmth of her husband's voice. "Always choose truth, even if it hurts," he had said years ago. "If seeing truth win gives you hope," she whispered to herself, "tap heart symbol so more people see this." She smiled sadly. For every mother who's been betrayed by her own blood, share this. She turned to walk home, not the old house yet, but a small rented place where peace lived quietly. The rain grew heavier, washing away the dust of years, but in her heart, a question still echoed, haunting and unresolved. But can a mother's heart ever truly heal? The screen faded to black, the piano fell silent. It had been 2 years since that day in court. The house that once echoed with pain now stood silent, washed clean by time and forgiveness. Sushma lived there again, but it wasn't the same. The walls had seen betrayal, the floor had felt her tears, yet today they felt peaceful. Morning sunlight streamed through the open window, glinting on her silver hair as she watered the small row of marigolds she had planted by the porch. They were her husband's favorite. She smiled softly, whispering, "You see, Rajesh, they finally bloomed again." She moved slowly but gracefully, her steps firm. The old woman who once trembled with fear was gone. In her place stood someone wiser, calm, unbroken. She made her morning tea, one cup perfectly sweetened, and sat on the veranda, the gentle wind carrying the scent of wet earth. In the distance, children played, their laughter filling the empty corners of her heart. Her neighbor, Mrs. D'Souza, waved from across the gate. "You look happy today, Sushma," she called. Sushma chuckled softly. "Happiness doesn't come from people, dear. It comes from peace." After everything that happened, she had chosen to stay alone. The court had offered her justice, but peace had to be built slowly, one quiet morning at a time. Sometimes she'd find herself looking at old photographs. There was one of her and Neha, taken years ago on Neha's birthday. The little girl had cake all over her face, eyes wide with laughter. Sushma traced her daughter's face with her finger and whispered, "Where did that smile go, my child?" She didn't cry anymore. She had forgiven, not for Neha's sake, but for her own. Forgiveness, she had learnt, wasn't about forgetting. It was about letting go of the poison that had once burned inside her heart. She spent her days teaching neighborhood kids to read, helping them with homework, telling them stories from her youth. They called her Nani. Every time they laughed, she felt something heal a little more. "You remind me of my own daughter when she was small," she'd tell them, smiling, hiding the flicker of pain in her eyes. One afternoon, as she cleaned her cupboard, she found an old letter, Neha's handwriting shaky and uneven. "Ma, I'm sorry. I can't face you yet, but I'm trying to become someone you'd be proud of." Sushma sat still, her eyes glistening. She pressed the letter to her chest and whispered, "You already were, my child. You just lost your way." That night she lit a small diya near a photo of her husband. "You were right, Rajesh," she murmured softly. "Truth does win, but it takes time." The air felt lighter. Somewhere deep inside, she felt a quiet acceptance, not of what happened, but of what she had become because of it. She had learned that love doesn't always stay, but it always leaves lessons behind. And strength, she realized, isn't loud. It's silent, like the courage to forgive someone who broke you. "If you've ever healed after heartbreak," she whispered softly, as if to the viewers who watched her story unfold, "tap heart symbol so I know I'm not alone." Days passed, seasons changed. Her garden flourished. Lilies, tulips, marigolds, each one grown with care and patience. She started baking again, simple things like semolina cakes and butter biscuits. Sometimes the neighborhood kids would stop by and she'd hand them a warm biscuit with a smile. "Don't forget to share," she'd remind them, just like she used to tell Neha when she was small. One evening, as the sun dipped low, there was a knock at her gate. Sushma walked slowly, unsure who it could be. When she opened it, she froze. Neha stood there, thinner, older, eyes swollen as if from nights of crying. She clutched a small box in her hands. "Ma, I didn't know if I had the right to come here." For a long moment, silence stood between them, not angry, not cold, just heavy with memories. Then Sushma stepped aside. "You don't need permission to come home," she said quietly. Neha broke down, tears spilling as she fell to her knees. "I'm so sorry. I lost everything, Ma. The house, the business, the respect.
Everything. I thought money would make me happy, but it only made me empty. Sushma knelt beside her, her frail hands cupping her daughter's face. You lost everything except your chance to change. Neha sobbed harder. Can you ever forgive me? Sushma smiled faintly. I already did, the day I stopped hating you. They sat together in silence, years of distance dissolving in quiet tears. That night, Neha stayed over. Sushma made her favorite khichdi, simple and warm. As they ate, they talked, not about the past, but about small things. The garden, the neighbors, the children who came to study. It felt like a long-lost lullaby had returned to her life. The next morning, Neha helped her in the garden. She dug the soil while Sushma watered the plants. You know, Ma, Neha said softly, I used to hate these flowers because they took your time away from me. But now I see, maybe they were the only thing keeping you alive. Sushma chuckled. Maybe they were. A butterfly landed on Neha's shoulder, and for a moment everything felt whole again. Sushma looked at her daughter and said gently, True inheritance isn't houses or money. It's what we leave in people's hearts. And I hope I left love, even if it got buried for a while. Neha nodded, tears glimmering. You did, Ma. You always did.